This week's episode of Still Untitled is made possible by Wisecam. Wise is on a mission to make amazing smart home products accessible to everyone. The Wise indoor camera is packed with premium features that allow you to see everything from anywhere for only $20. Whether you're checking to see if your kids are home safe or if your 3D printer has finished printing, nothing is off limits for Wisecam. Go to wise.com/untitled, that's WYZE, to be guaranteed the lowest price available. Now on with the show. Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Norm.
I'm Adam.
I'm Joey.
Joey Fameli.
Hello.
We got a Joey in the house.
It's been so long since you've
has
been on the
been.
podcast.
Yeah, I've been down in LA and around other places. It's been a while.
And we are talking. You are literally getting on a plane to go back down to LA tonight.
Yep.
I actually began this day in Golden, Colorado.
Ooh.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. What's in Golden, Colorado, if you can say?
In Golden, Colorado is one of the is a very prestigious, lovely engineering school called the Colorado School of Mines. We talked about them.
Yes,
because
you've
I did an
visited, yeah.
appearance there a few months ago.
Are we talking mines?
Not
Mimes.
mimes. As in
Oh,
mining
fine.
and engineering,
Oh,
applied
wow.
engineering.
Where's Golden in relation to like Denver?
It's about an hour outside of Denver.
Okay.
A lovely community, lovely town, lovely school. The kids are incredible. And when I spoke there, they were telling me about their engineering facilities, and they were telling me about these cutting-edge machines they have that do things. And they said, if you ever wanted to play, you should give us a call. And I made a suggestion there that ended up being part of the show I'm now doing for the Discovery Channel, for Science Channel.
That's amazing.
So we were there filming, and then for the rest of this week, I'm assembling what they helped me build. And that's all I can say about it,
Wow.
except I was in this workshop yesterday with 10 students grinding a whole bunch of rare metals and getting this thing ready.
It's the kind of thing, and I'm going to hype it up because I've been hearing about the ambitions for this. If you had told me that this was something you were planning on doing just in the conceptual stage, I would have nodded my head, and then I would have shook my head in the inside.
That's never going to happen.
Never going to happen. And so the
Yeah.
fact that it's happening is pretty cool.
It's totally happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you guys love it when we tease you with things we can't say, so I apologize. But suffice to say, when we can finally announce the air date of my new show and its title, you'll hear more about some of the stuff we did in Golden, Colorado. But what a beautiful city. Yesterday, it was like one of those days where it's warm. It's like in the high 40s, but there's still snow on the ground. But of course, because it's Colorado, everyone's walking around in T-shirts and shorts.
That's what's funny about places that get really cold. When it just gets a little bit warmer, everybody gets sandals out, shorts.
Exactly.
It's summer.
Years ago, Mythbusters filmed in Alaska, and it was 30 below.
Wow.
Where we were filming, 30 below. It was so cold, you would get a headache moving from the van into the hotel. Just that like 100-foot walk. But it was also during prom weekend that we were filming there. So we're like huddling up like we're on Hoth to make it from the car to the hotel. Meanwhile, there's like girls in miniskirts climbing out of limos with their boyfriends and like just taking it all in stride.
There was a moment when Norm and I were just in New York, and it was starting to snow there. It was getting really cold, and we're kind of outside waiting to get into our car. And I'm looking around like, oh, look at the snow. It's so cold. I'm looking at Norm like, we were in the Arctic. What am I complaining about? Like,
I think the difference was that when we were in the Arctic, we were surrounded by ice like ice. Here is a city, like, and we're both from the West Coast, so our familiarity with snow extends to, skiing,
yeah.
Tahoe, right?
I tend to think, having worked on Mythbusters, a temperature spread from 40 below zero to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, that all of the temperature extreme is about giving over to it and proper preparation. So if I'm ever going somewhere super cold, I'm wearing wool socks because as long as my feet are warm, I can I can endure almost any other suffering. And I know that about myself, and so when you go to some place where you know it's going to be cold, you prepare. You're wearing a couple of layers. You're able to attenuate. But when you're not prepared and you're just wearing San Francisco street clothes and you step off a plane at Kennedy and you're like, holy cow.
Literally, I think that is what happened.
Yep.
That is Joey arrived in
T-shirt and shorts.
T-shirt and shorts in New York. as we went to meet up for dinner. And
I used some time in the hotel room over the last couple of days to finish up the 3rd season of The Good Place, which I had not yet binged. I'm here to tell you, I think that are you guys?
I watched it like live, so it's been a little while since I've seen the third. Third is the latest.
Third is the latest season. I won't give any spoilers, but this is by far the funniest season. This season had me laughing out loud.
The writing is so good.
So good. I was very distracted by Chidi's perfect specimen of a sculpted body that he has.
The
That is
character
a very
Chidi.
distracting and
Yes.
bizarre thing to have happened. When
The
he took his shirt off.
the great philosopher Chidi, turns out also
To be swole.
is swole. For which I think the best Twitter response was, "This is how Superman Clark Kent works."
Right.
Like, no one else can complain about people not recognizing Clark Kent as Superman because
Right, exactly.
he's super nerdy. That show, I'm really. The first 2 seasons, I felt like had a natural like arc to it, and with all its twists and turns. 3rd season to me felt like they were exploring a little bit of the weirdness a little bit, and there wasn't like the plot changed, the direction of the show felt like it changed every
the whole
2
pace
episodes.
changes. Yeah. And I really appreciate that. I imagine. I mean, I know some of the performers on the show. I'm a big fan of several of the writers in the writers' room. I imagine that also keeps it interesting for them.
Yeah.
Changing up the whole structure. There's just a lot of shows. I mean, I know, on Lost, they had different philosophical battles each season about what the focus of the show was. And that's a really important conversation to have. I feel like on The Good Place, they're just like thinking of more ways to have fun with these great characters.
Especially the 3rd season. I mean, every episode they're going through some different existential crisis or becoming other people, and it seems like a lot of the writers' room in that must have been a lot of fun just to be a part of or watch.
I've started to listen to the podcast. Mark Evan Jackson's podcast of The Good Place. There's a podcast episode for each episode of the show. They actually discuss them in detail, and so apparently I haven't listened to this one yet. But there's a whole episode when all the character. Okay, this is a little bit of a spoiler for the season, but it doesn't tell you anything about the plot. There's an episode where all the characters become Janet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And the actress that plays Janet then is effectively doing the performances of each of the actors and killing at it.
Well, you know exactly who she is, like in the first second.
Yeah, you never lose the plot at all. They talk about how she did it, how she workshopped through their table read performances in order to get the nuances of how they read.
Oh, that's great. I am on the final season of The Americans. We're 5 episodes away from finishing, so savoring it.
Are you watching like one a day, or are you just kind of catching it as
We're catching it as the baby sleeps.
Yeah,
so roughly one a day.
Okay, so if you are, I feel like it's reasonable to just talk about the plot of. Or have you not watched?
I've never seen it, but I'm okay.
You want to give me a hint about where you are 5 episodes from the end?
Oh my gosh,
there's a lot going on.
2 characters. I'll say that it will mean nothing to you. Philip and Baroff have finally met, and that's a weird thing. So,
Alexei, yes.
So the show is about Russians pretending to be Americans, right? Spies, Russian spies living as Americans.
Deeply embedded.
Deeply, yes.
Current day.
No, 80s in the Cold War.
The Cold War, okay.
And
it's based on the story that happened a couple years ago with some much more buffoonish spies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the 2 main characters, Philip Jennings, Elizabeth Jennings, played by Matthew Rhys and Kerry Russell, they speak American the entire time, English the whole time. Like they never go back to the Russian, but they are Russian operatives. And then there's some other characters on the show who are just Russians. Like
you spend a lot of time in the Russian embassy where they part of their operation of managing their American spy network happens.
But
you bounce back and forth between America and the Russian.
And the FBI.
And you also go to Russia, like you spend time in Russia.
But in many ways, it feels like 2 separate shows because those characters never interact, and they kind of reference the same missions in different terms.
And the final season spends a lot less. I mean, in the earlier seasons, you spend a lot of time in the getting to know those characters and understanding how they work and what they're doing. And the last season, you spend a lot less time there. But when Borov shows up,
so the point is that these characters that were a lot of the threads are coming together finally, and it's very satisfying. to watch.
I have to tell you, I don't think they stuck the landing on the finale. But I'm
No,
looking
don't tell me
forward to
that.
hearing
The
your-
only reason I'm watching this now is because
No.
I've been led to believe they stuck the finale.
Oh, I didn't. You didn't hear that from me.
No. I've
I-
read it from other people
yeah.
that I also trust online.
Really, it's a show anchored by two of the best actors going right now. I mean, Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys bring so much subtlety to the roles. There's points, we talked about this on the podcast, there's points where Kerry Russell is playing a person and she's designed a character to ensnare a guy. And she's playing this character and they're making love, and you can see that while they're making love, she's actually moved. She's able to deliver all of that in a performance that you can see the mask, and then you can see behind the mask, and then you can see behind that mask. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And Matthew Rhys is just like, every single episode, he looks like whenever he puts on a disguise, he's a terrifyingly different human being.
The wigs are great on the show.
Yeah.
The
So
wigs.
much good wig work.
Yeah. Yeah, which it needs.
Speaking of the Arctic, our friend of Tested, Chris Hadfield, has been in town and came over here for lunch on Sunday. I took him over to Panchitas for some delicious pupusas.
Oh,
That's great.
Yeah.
He's here just short term for a project.
He is here, working on a project, and it's always good to get together with him. I mean, both of us are so stupid busy. Emails or phone calls don't really do it, so it's great to kind of get together for a couple hours and download what we've been doing. And his family's all over the place doing great things.
I saw you guys posted an image on Twitter because you guys got lunch, I believe, Oscar night, and so you're
Yes.
holding your fake Oscars.
Yes.
Did you watch the Oscars?
I did not.
Ah.
This is the first year I haven't watched them in decades. I felt sick. And some good friends of mine who live a couple blocks from us had a little Oscar gathering, and instead of going, I stayed home. This is something that almost never happens. Me to stay home is just it just almost never occurs.
so what are your guys' like? Do you guys have Oscar things you do? Like everyone I talk to kind of does something different, parties or bets?
Put it on. We put it on in the
guys put
background,
oh,
but we
right.
don't. I don't bet on it.
For the longest time, we regularly get together with somebody to watch award shows. We like watching award shows with other people. We like watching the red carpets. We like dishing and talking about what people are wearing and saying. And when we have in the past hosted many award show parties where we have ballots that people fill out. Actually, Julia, my wife, was telling me that our friend Jessica made up a bingo card of all the things that happened at the Oscars.
Things that happened.
That always
traditionally happen.
right?
Oh.
Like shot of the person who didn't win looking sour, right? Like those sort of,
A
and
quick
she had
cut
all
to
these,
the teleprompter in the background, so you can
Yes.
track ahead.
and what Julia said was, they didn't fill out nearly any of them because nothing interesting happened
Yeah.
during this Oscar telecast.
It's pretty uneventful. I mean, in terms of a celebration of film, and we always look for reasons to celebrate film. The Oscars, I think today, yes, it still has meaning and people still hold it on a pedestal, but there are so many different communities and places that you can celebrate film and so many different ways to celebrate film that you don't need this one institution. I will say, in terms of institutions, though, there was a segment, a quick commercial for their upcoming opening of their museum. So they
Yes.
have been building that facility down next to LACMA.
We've got to talk to them about doing a piece about that.
Yes.
I would love to go down and
Yes.
visit that.
Yeah, and they're the ones they've been spending money on buying props and costumes to fill it out.
So that's what it is. It's like
It's an academy
collection.
museum.
Wow.
Something
Yeah,
they should
Museum
have
of
done
Film.
decades ago. I'm so glad they're doing it. Hey, how do you do an in memoriam and somehow miss R. Lee Ermey,
Yeah.
drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket?
Oh.
He died last year, did not show up in the in memoriam. And I know every year there's like what feel like huge omissions.
Yeah, it's that's always been a weird
I mean,
section.
we almost didn't have cinematography, editing.
yeah.
Right.
This,
I loved watching all the filmmakers. Like Guillermo
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, these arts are cinema itself.
yeah, this is he said like this is unique to
Yes,
cinema. Like this
yes.
is not coming from theater, coming from anything else. This is-
And he was there to present because the winners of the previous years present for the categories they won in
Yeah.
the major ones. So he presented for Best Director, and he said he was sick. But he made it anyway because he wouldn't want to miss it. And of course, his good friend Cuarón won for Best Director.
Amazing.
And so he was able to give that.
And cinematographer, right?
Oh, really?
Roma. Did
he win? Did they win? Did he win for that?
I think he won Best Cinematographer.
Wow.
That's
holy. Wow.
And Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Driving Mr. Daisy.
I will give a shout out to another podcast, of course, The Daily, which I think you listened to. That's had a great episode from their New York Times culture critic, deep diving into and exploring why it felt so awkward and maybe wrong that Green Book won for Best Picture.
It's a terrific deep analysis about Hollywood and racial politics and Driving Miss Daisy and Green Book.
Well, the different and representation,
and
what it
absolutely.
means, and how representation has many forms.
So in this current political climate, which if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm taking very seriously, and I find it very emotionally difficult to navigate the news every day. I found myself in a lovely, safe space. I've been saying a lot over the past few months that I love 99% Invisible because it's like not politics, and I love Roman and the stories that his team tells. But yesterday, I spent several hours listening to back episodes of one of the best NPR shows on all of NPR radio, which is On the Media.
Yes,
And
Brooke Gladstone.
Brooke Gladstone, Bob Garfield. If you're not familiar with On the Media, it is basically a weekly compendium of analyzing media itself and how the world is being viewed through the different lenses of the different media that we imbibe.
And it's been long running, and it's been interesting to track it as media has changed.
Absolutely.
From their native format radio to television to internet and web journalism and
one of the things that I cottoned onto early that I really liked about them was they were on NPR, and they play on Sunday on NPR, but they'll take NPR to task for anything. Like there's nothing. You don't feel like they're playing for any specific side. They're really looking to kind of understand the whole issue. So when they ask questions, they ask them from such a genuine place of curiosity and interest. Even when they ask what might seem like aggressive questions of the people they're interviewing, they get real answers. And I've heard them interview some people who I just think are detestable human beings, and the interviews are fantastic. And they get to the meat of what I have complicated difficulties with about that guest. I know I'm talking in abstractions, and that's difficult, but really, it's a great dose of stuff that delves deeply into politics and the politics of how we receive and understand our politics from a standpoint of what feels like a very balanced place.
On the Media?
On the Media. Yeah.
I think also it feels like the ombudsman for mainstream media.
It really does.
Right, like
they feel like mom and dad. I also love Brooke Gladstone and Bob Garfield's voice. They both have these very comforting radio voices.
If you're interested in like media and how it works, I also recommend reading or tracking the Nieman Lab for Journalism. I forget Harvard's Journalism Lab. They have a blog, and they pick apart and talk about trends in media. And do interviews and trends. Hey everyone, before we continue on with this week's episode, I want to let you know that Still Untitled is also made possible by Vistaprint. Whether you're a startup or a business with a century of history, being plugged in and prepared when the opportunity comes up is crucial. Those moments happen all the time, and having a business card that shows how professional you are is the first step to making something happen. With Vistaprint, all it takes is $10 to create a truly professional, unique card in minutes. To have the confidence you're always ready to make an impression, ready to own the now, simply upload your own design or start with one of Vistaprint's professionally designed options in wide range of templates. Pick the paper stock, style and quantity, choose your delivery speed, and then receive your cards in as few as 3 days with your satisfaction 100% guaranteed. Vistaprint wants you to be able to always own the now in any situation, which is why our listeners will get 500 high-quality custom business cards starting at just $9.99. Just use the code UNTITLED at Vistaprint.com. That's the code UNTITLED at Vistaprint.com. Untitled at Vistaprint.com. Now back to the conversation.
Also, at one point, hold on. At one point, a couple of years ago, I tweeted about how much I liked On the Media, and they tweeted back to me, and it's such a thrill. Yesterday, I got the same thrill because I tweeted a picture of me receiving my new McMaster-Carr catalog, and McMaster-Carr tweeted to me, "We embrace your reality."
Nice. Nice.
That is not a catalog. That is a. That
Are
is
you
a
not familiar with
massive
this catalog?
No, I never. Seen, that is massive.
This is one of the this object here is something that the web can't do, and that is you can flip through this and not only look at gloves or solenoids or angled barbs or whatever and see every variant of every kind of mechanical part, factory part, construction piece, adhesive, wheel, shackle, bracket there is. But also at the beginning of each section, there's explanations about how these are used and what industries they're used in. I've learned so much about making stuff just from flipping through this catalog. And this McMaster-Carr, to be clear, was one of the first people to go deeply online with a very searchable version of this. And yet still, there's an aspect of flipping through this that's just like can't be equated digitally.
Let me see that
Yeah.
for a
The-
minute.
the
for
yellow
our,
book
our
for
audio
making.
only listeners.
That's the book hitting the table. It's effectively the size of a phone book. What's a phone book? Okay, it's effectively the size of a Bible, of a big Bible at your grandparents' house.
It would have been blasphemy for you to tear that in half when you were touring, right? That would have been very on brand, maybe. Yeah. Wow.
What else has been going on this week?
Well, I do want to give shout outs because, Joey and I were in New York,
Yes.
and while we can't go into the specifics of what we were filming,
project we can't talk about.
we were filming and visited the workspaces of two friends of Tested that we've filmed with before, Melissa Ng, Lou McCluster, and Rick Lyon. And the takeaway that I had was that we visited their spaces, and they could not have more different workshops and maker spaces.
How about Melissa's space? Isn't that crazy?
And you had talked about it in the podcast before, because when you had visited when you were in New York, and she of course has guested in the podcast as well. But when you said in the back of a music studio and a piano studio, I thought one thing, and it was not that, and it is an office.
Yeah. It's as if like you were like, "Hey, Pop, can I set up a desk in that unused office in the middle of this corporate space?" And he said, "Yes, just please dress appropriately and don't make it look like it's a workspace." And somehow she delivers these amazing creations out of that space. It's sort of mind-blowing.
I mean, that's like knowing somewhat of the process of how to make these things. You look at her space, and there's no way you can do that in here. There's absolutely no way you can keep the space as clean. There's no way you can do it in this size of a space.
It's the best part about it is how unexpected it is, and also how it puts a lie to the idea of like, I can't do this because I don't have that.
Right.
She is a living embodiment of, oh, if these are my parameters, that is what I'll work with to do something that is improbable and impossible to others. And like, that's what she's doing.
Yeah, it turns out a lot of YouTube and internet for tutorials and instructions can help guide you
Totally.
to making. Or, on the flip side, with Rick's space, you guys have both been there. Because when you made your puppet, it was wonderful to be in that shop.
Oh, I feel so at home in Rick's shop. I
Yeah.
feel so like I walk into a place like that. I'm like, yeah, let me just get some glue out.
Right, yeah. There's barge. There's the smell of barge, smell of foam. Both
Did he make something?
treated.
Did something
Yes,
get made?
we
Something
got to
made.
see him make something and perform.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's puppetry work, of course. Rick Lyon, Rick being the guy who designed and fabricated all the puppets for Avenue Q. Yeah,
A wonderful man, a wonderful performer.
yes, and a nerd,
A deep nerd.
Yes,
I
yeah.
first met him dressed as in a perfect down to the painted eyebrows 1960s Batman costume.
I think he has 4 cows, and Rick will correct me. Maybe it's more, but I spotted.
I
Four.
want
Adam
one
West
of those
cows.
costumes. I've got the dad bod for it. I can totally make that work.
You'd have to Cesar Romero paint over the facial hair.
Is
Yes.
that what they... I still always thought that shaving my beard would be an amazing thing to do for one of my cosplay walks. I mean, the last time I shaved it was 1990.
How long does it take for you to grow back?
A couple weeks.
Okay,
couple
so
weeks it starts to pepper itself in.
you probably would need to pair that with having a great prosthetic for those couple weeks.
Well, I've got hair people. I could
Well, I'm saying you're right.
hire
right,
someone to make
right.
me a little
I think it's
face merkin.
right. Right. It's more interesting for you to have that to cover up for the month or two
Yeah.
while it grows back than it is to try to cover what you have right now
Exactly.
and make it look like. I think you should do it.
Joey, what have you been cooking lately? I know
Cooking.
you like to cook.
Man. Just before I came, right when I got back from New York, I did a whole bunch of a seafood pasta. I've been implementing stuff into my pasta dough. So I got a bunch of squid ink and cuttlefish ink from Amazon. So I've been rolling that out. Wow. I tried to bring back.
You like doing hand cut pasta?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of fish. We have some fish people in LA that I just got a bunch of stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna make some pasta. And popped open the cuttlefish ink and went nuts with the dough. I tried to bring back a bunch of tap water from New York to make pizza dough with the New York tap water to do it side by side, and California tap water as opposed to.
Did it work?
I did not.
Either the water was confiscated by the TSA because
checked it.
Yeah,
You checked
or
it, but it wasn't in your.
It wasn't in it. Either I
Yeah.
forgot it somewhere, or I think I might have like
literally no. We were in New York for a whole week, and there was a bottle of water that traveled with us. That was the
said Brooklyn.
that was the from the borough, right? And so a reason to go back is so Joey can go
really? 'Cause
across the 5 boroughs and get samples. And bring it back in
I have heard that you can take a sourdough starter from San Francisco to Denver and make sourdough bread with it a few times, but at a certain point, the local sourdough
Cultures have
bacterium will take over.
Yeah.
It really is. These are regional. Some of these are very regional things.
I have heard of people ordering tap water to do this.
Well, I'm sure a friend of Tesla would be willing to send a couple of liters of water, Joey. I'm positive this is something that doesn't require you
Would
to
you
fly
trust it,
yourself
though?
all the way back
I know.
to New York.
if you didn't pull it from the tap yourself.
Like I know specifically that I went to the tap and I was like, I know where this water is coming from.
Well, look, we could hire someone to shoot a video of themselves, and then they put tape over it. We have tamper-proof tape.
Right.
If it's that important to know that it came from the tap.
I think it's worth testing.
Yeah.
How would you? Do you think? Imagine the taste would be that much different. Could you,
People,
as a pizza maker,
I think
tell?
I think I could be able to tell. I don't know if I don't know if anybody can just eat it and tell. Like I can tell the nuances of like different dough. Like I handled this a little bit differently, or my yeast didn't improve enough. That's also because I've been spending so much time making pizzas over the last 20 years.
We got to get you and Dave Goles together because Dave, the Muppet performer who performs Gonzo and is a friend of Tested and friend of mine, is a very, very avid home pizza maker. He's been making some pizza for decades, and I've gone to his house and had it. It's stunning pizza.
Man,
Yeah, we got to get the two of you together.
talk some pizza.
Yeah, I'm sure you have lots to go over.
Yeah, notes to compare.
Norm, what's coming up on the site this week?
We actually just before we were able to shoot this, we're back at our studio and we had a visit. We're deep in the toys. Last week was New York Toy Fair. It was so funny. We were both in New York during
Valentine's Day.
New York Toy Fair, and we didn't get to go, and I didn't get to go. So we had a lot of toy related content. Prop Store is running a really interesting vintage toy auction, so I was able to stop by
Really cool.
their warehouse and just see basically a museum of old prototype wax sculpts of toys, paint prototypes, original artwork that was shrunken down for the boxes of 80s and 90s toys. And then a toy photographer came by and we did some shoots with him where he demonstrated some effects like putting fireworks in the background and creating some really beautiful small scale, 8th scale kind of portraits of these collectibles.
Many years ago, when I was doing when I was a model maker, I often took extra freelance work, and one of the things I did for a while was toy prototyping for Galoob. So I did prototypes of 4 Star Wars ships for Galoob back in around 2001, and they asked me if I would do some test photographs of them in situ, and so I took some of Galoob's toys and photographed them in miniature sets that looked like Naboo or Beggar's Canyon.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. I was using the same techniques that we had used to build those sets for the film, for the bigatures for Star Wars Episode 1, except I was doing this in my little shop over on Bartlett Street.
It is a really fun, and you can deep dive, and a hobby that you can really deep dive into on places like Instagram.
I should find those photos. We could put them
I
up.
would love to see that.
Yeah, I think you'd really dig them.
Awesome. Joey, I know you got to catch
Yep.
a flight.
Yep.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
guys.
joining us this
Yeah.
week.
Good seeing you guys.
Safe travels. I trust there won't be any delays and that you'll be home and in bed by 10:30 tonight.
I hope so.
We have some pretty windy weather here in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, there was a weather hold. I was late coming in from Denver.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. And we'll
Thanks,
see you then.
guys.
Thanks for listening this week. And once again, I want to let you know that this episode is made possible by Wisecam, because Wise is on a mission to make amazing smart home products accessible to everyone. Wise's indoor camera is packed with premium features that allows you to see everything from anywhere for only $20. Whether you're checking to see if your kids are home safe or if a 3D print has finished printing, nothing is off limits for the Wisecam. Just go to wise.com/untitled. That's WYZE.com/untitled to be guaranteed the lowest available price. Thanks for listening again, and we'll see you next week.